Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Liam's Hockey, brought to you by Hosie and Brown Automotive and Ad Seal Services. And let's just fix that up here just a little bit there. All right, there we go. Let's see, got the bar in the background, got the hockey photos, got my this day in hockey. I want to thank my buds in Peterborough for giving me this shirt a couple of years back. Throw it in the rotation, of course. It's a good day for hockey. He is a forever be known as a Badger Bob Johnson phrase, and God rest his soul. And geez, we've had a tough last 12 months in the hockey world, and I did write my bit on Mike Bossy and the sudden passing of Lance Galbraith in that terrible single vehicle accident. I get the news of both of them going on the same day. Of course, a statement from the Montreal Canadiens about Guy Lafleur is very dire and has us all anticipating at some point the other skate to drop there, if you will. So we'll wait for that and say our prayers for him and that family. But in the meantime, I thought the Islanders, as you would expect, did an outstanding tribute to Bossy at their home rink. Not the Nassau County Coliseum, but still, the spirit of Mike, I'm sure, was there. I know Brian Trottier did a lot of interviews, and rightfully so. Can you imagine, in the span of a few short months, losing Mike and Clark Gillies? I mean, it's just almost incomprehensible. And I know in the case, as I wrote, of him and Mike, I just want to expand on that just for a second. I did that gig St. Patrick's Day on stage at the CTC here in Ottawa as part of the 125th celebration for the Stanley Cup. It was just a fantastic couple of days that I was with all those guys, and everybody that came in to speak from the alumni on behalf of the alumni were men who had won the Stanley Cup, and myself, who represented the English MC, and Chantal Maccabee, who now has been subsequently hired by the Montreal Canadiens, doing an outstanding job in the early going on their PR staff. She handled the French side of things with me on stage, and it was one of the greatest events of my life for sure. And when it came time for Mike, well, he came up with Trottier, obviously. They came up together. They were a duo that came up together. Everybody was sort of paired off as we went through the decades of those who were available to come and speak to us that day and speak to the crowd that was assembled. It's actually sadly, it was on St. Patrick's Day. I think the organizers, and I said that to them then, did not really have a full understanding of how big a day that is in many localities, not only here in Ottawa, but really in the world. It's a big day socially for a lot of people. And I think we would have had several thousand more people there had it been held on any other day other than March 17th. But as it was, we had a fantastic night and a great crowd. And I will never forget how Brian Trottier spoke about Mike Bossy, about the value of what he meant to the team, to Brian personally, to the line, to the fans, to the sport of hockey. It was just unbelievable. Unbelievable to sit there and, it was only 5 years ago, 2017. It's how quickly things can go, Mike was fine, as were many others that we've subsequently lost in this time period, as we know. So that said, Islanders did a great job. Excuse me, and so did many other people. There were many things posted on Mike's behalf in his memory, and I just simply chimed in. I felt I had not only did I really had to, but I wanted to. I got to know him. He guested on many radio shows of mine going back to the early 1990s. I did a couple of other banquets and dinners that he attended, a couple of events in the Montreal area where he mostly lived, and he went on to do a lot of broadcast work. He was on Sirius XM, the NHL channel. He did a bunch of stuff on there. He was French TV, and just a lot of media work really as things went on. In addition to offering to help out where he could to various teams, including the Islanders, if they could use him on the ice in any way, shape, or form. Sadly, not as a player, because those days were gone, but to come in and offer his wisdom and expertise on try and teach what was so innate for him, so natural for him to do. As I wrote when I watched him play junior, when he came in to play the Hull Olympics, and he was with the Laval Junior A team, and he just, I think he got 2 or 3 goals the first game I went to see him play. I believe he was 16. He was just amazing. Just amazing. And boy, gone too soon at 65. I mean, that's only a couple years older than me right now, and it's does bring your own mortality sometimes into the forefront of your thinking when people who you admire or got to know are going at ages that are close to yours, or that you're close to. So anyway, I thought they did a great job. I said what I said, what I wrote about Lance Galbraith. That was just shocking beyond belief. 42 years of age. They said 200 meters from his driveway. How many times do we hear that? God, it just seems like we hear it over our lifetimes far too often, that we've lost somebody that was so close to home. Anyway, tough loss here for many, many people in the Ottawa area, and to the pockets of the fan bases where he entertained thousands as he continued his pro career down south in the East Coast Hockey League primarily. In the top 10 penalty minute leaders, making semifinals and finals and winning Kelly Cups down there, which he did on 2 occasions in a 10-year pro career. Believe me, he kept her going as a hockey player to the best of his ability and got everything he could out of his career. So a follow-up condolences to those two men. A couple things on the hockey front here as we move along. Last night I watched Ottawa, Vancouver. I'll tell you, there had to be I'd say at least 3 parts of that game where the continuous play went at least 6 or 7 minutes. I think at one point in the third period it went close to 9 minutes. Johnny Abbott, my dear friend, doing the play-by-play. Good job, Johnny. And there was, I think, an 8-minute stretch in the second period. And I think there was one other stretch of 6 minutes. And I'll tell you what, the Ottawa Senator game against the Toronto Maple Leafs last Saturday was one of the better hockey games I've seen this year too. And I've seen a pile of good games. I've seen a lot of good games. I think that's why so many of us are really, really anticipating. You know how they call the World Cup of soccer, and there's always a grouping they call the group of death? Well, that's the first round of the NHL playoffs. I mean, talk about a group of death. You're going to have 8 teams that are going to lose in the first round, of which 3 or 4 easily, if they were to win, could go to the semifinals, if not the finals. Easy. Maybe even win a cup. So it's just crazy how this first round is going to play out. So watched Ottawa, Vancouver with the Sens out of it and playing spoiler. It's a big point for Vancouver not to get, losing in the shootout. They had a 2-1 lead going in the third. Ottawa scored twice, I think in like $1.12 or something to take the lead. Vancouver ties it up, goes into OT. It's back and forth. But, these Ottawa Senators are going to take a big jump up the standings next year. Can they make it all the way to a 35, 37, 38 improvement and challenge for a wild card spot? I think they're going to be no lower than where the New York Islanders are right now in terms of chasing that final spot. Now, I'll go so far as to say I think Ottawa could be higher. When you throw Chabot and Sanderson in the mix there, take out 2D currently to put them both in. Chabot obviously top pairing, Sanderson probably second. If they get the goaltending, this is all notwithstanding injuries. I mean, look, they can kill you. They can kill you. I don't care who you are. If you're losing key guys And who the hell knows where we're going to be with COVID next fall? Is that still going to be a thing that can shut down players and or groups of players or maybe teams, and games are going to get postponed again? We don't know. We hope not. Like to think not, but we don't know. So we'll have to see how that plays out. That was a hell of a game last night, and there's nothing. You're playing just for positioning in the East. I've said that. Everybody knows that now. You're only playing for positioning in the Eastern Conference. Everybody that is making the playoffs is in the playoffs. There isn't anybody else has a shot. The West, you've got a dogfight there in that wild card position. There's no question. That sort of somewhat brings the the Pacific Division into play. Although I will say that one more win, even though it won't mean mathematically, but I think Edmonton would pretty much be free and clear. Just that that 7-point gap I think they've got right now with like 5 games to go, 6 games. I think they've got 6 games to go, I believe. I mean, they've just about sewn it up mathematically anyway, but I think this 8-1-1 run they're on, they're going to cement it. So it comes down to LA and then brings in Vegas and Dallas, and of course Vancouver, who lost a valuable point last night. Winnipeg all but out of it, and we're just in for a real treat here these last handful of games to see who is actually going to lock up a position. Los Angeles were really leaking oil, and now have picked up 2 must wins against teams that they probably, based on their play over the majority of the season, should have won anyway, and they did. So now here we are, and we'll see how they finish. Vegas, I don't know, man. I don't know, and I don't think there's a lot of fans that are upset if they, by chance, they happen to miss, based on how George McPhee and company just did a tap dance on everybody when they came in, and if they happen to slide out and they've got to settle up some contractual issues to get cap compliant for the start of next season, it'll be interesting to see how Vegas maneuvers going forward. Because that was, I think they had to probably move Marc-Andre Fleury. He's gone over to Minnesota and played very well, and they are just really going to, they got St. Louis first round, though. Like, they're fighting for home ice advantage. Seriously, it's a coin flip. It's a coin flip. Who's going to win that? Maybe slight edge Wild, but I mean, who knows? Who knows? I don't know. But Minnesota, Fleury's gone over there. Vegas had to move him. I mean, he cost Vegas Game 2 against the Habs last year, gave Montreal that momentum. They got right back on that treadmill and kept her going and got through them. And by the time they switched to Leonard, the damage had been done. And so they rode Leonard and tried to get her done. And here they are now on the outside looking in and going to be, I think, hard-pressed to make it in there. So we'll see. That was a killer for Vancouver last night, but they can get right back on that horse. If they miss by 1 point, and it's courtesy of the Sens, that will be a tough pill to swallow. But that's the only thing that was unfortunate last night watching it, is that Ottawa was doing it to another Canadian team. I kind of wish that had been somebody else, but I've got a soft spot for Vancouver. I always have, ever since I did a bunch of radio there for a number of years running, and I'd love to see them back in the postseason. So anyway, that's that. Let's move on a little bit. We'll Timmy Stützle. He is like the center point of every week. The diving and whatnot. I think he's mostly cleaned it up. Where it started last year, how it manifests and continued itself this year, leading up to the whole situation with Montreal, the Suzuki hit, where he did miss 2 games. The Brendan Gallagher comments. We do have one spicy game yet to go. I mean, it's not like the Canadians have a lot of firepower physically anyway, but it should add a little bit of a flavor to a game with 2 teams out of the playoffs. There's a natural rivalry there anyway, and the Habs are really, really limping in. This is a massive turtle race right now. It really almost is like these teams, I think, behind the scenes have kind of settled on, we think Shane Wright's the guy, and we want to put as many eggs in a basket as we can, despite the lottery, and hope we finish one or no worse than two, so I can take that hotshot Russian left winger. It really appears as if those guys are going 1-2, maybe reverse order. So it will be all but assuredly Montreal and Arizona, vice versa, who get those picks. Right now, Arizona in 32nd. The Habs a large 2 points up on them. Neither team looks like they've got a win coming anytime soon. Montreal can't even score right now. And the Flyers are doing their best to nosedive down to the bottom too, but they've got too big of a cushion. So it really is a two-horse turtle race, and because of that, probably not a huge discussion as to who's going to win against Ottawa and Montreal coming up. But it could be and should be a spicy game. Natural rivalry. They've got the playoff experiences, albeit now a number of years ago when they played those two series in 3 years. And then the most recent comments about Stützle. He'll grow out of this. This whole thing will eventually leave his persona, I believe, anyway. There was a play in overtime last night. It should have been a tripping call. I forget which Canuck got a stick in there. Was it Miller? I don't think so. Might have been, but I don't think it was. Regardless, it should have been a call all day. That was definitely a tripping call. He did not dive. That stick was right between his legs. And this is, of course, you see a lot of those not called in OT anyway. That's just the NHL way. Sadly, they ref the score and the time of the game way more often they actually do than what is actually a penalty or not. Let's be honest. It's part and parcel with officiating in the National Hockey League. They maybe don't want to hear it. What do they care? They're never interviewed or have to make a comment anyway. The only time there's any type of reform or revision made on the officials is as they advance up the playoff line and those that are not selected to continue to officiate the games, and then we get a sense of where the NHL think the better ones lie, whomever they may be. We as fans, or anybody who does work in the media that ever questions it, we may as well take a leak into the wind, man. You're not going to get anywhere ever. So that should have been called last night, but you could watch any game, any NHL game, and see stuff like that all day. So it's just the way it goes. But in respect to Stützle, he's still taking a lot of heat on social media for what's transpired earlier, not only this year, but last year when this thing all kind of started. And I think that I think he's going to be, I'll tell you what, he's a blue chipper in making. He is, by moving him to center, which Ottawa was kind of forced to do initially. What I'm seeing, and if you're a Sens fan, you're watching all the games anyway, but boy, what a bonus to have him back in your own zone picking up the puck. He is so skilled and talented that he can either skate out with it or skate to a point on the ice in his own zone where he can make a play, if not get it out himself. And he's like that third guy back there because he comes back so deep. When he gets a little bit more aware on where he needs to be body-wise on the right side to defend properly, play that proverbial 200-foot game, he'll get even better. He's just a kid. He's got tremendous potential. You got a sniper in Norris, and you have got a real gem developing in Stützle. And I think this whole diving and faking stuff that he's been accused of, and I think to a degree rightfully so, will eventually dissipate and not be an issue at all for him. I really believe that. So just quickly on the Habs, Carey Price has gotten in a couple games. He's looked okay. You know what's funny? He's played 2 games against the Islanders in Minnesota. Islanders are out of it, and Minnesota are one of the stronger teams in the Western Conference. And it's not like he's faced a flurry of shots. I know I saw one comment on Twitter today where it was made that he looks kind of awkward going post to post. I'll say that on the second goal last night. he did look like he just, I don't know, lost his legs, his positioning, his net, whatever, however you want to say it. It was a bit of a weird look. I'm willing to cut him all sorts of slack here. The guy sat out the whole year. Not only was it the knee injury, I mean, the mental illness that he needed a break from wouldn't be a factor in how he's playing on the ice right now. This is strictly a knee thing. But what I see happening here, I see Marty St. Louis has said he doesn't know if he's playing tomorrow night or not, but I see him getting, hopefully, a couple or three more starts. I wish he had backed up and played a little bit more. I would have loved to have seen him maybe consider going to the World Championships. I know that's not going to happen. He's not going to fly overseas now. There's no way and play. But that was just a personal wish. However, I think that that what you'll see is, I'm hoping he'll get several more starts this season, be able to go to camp next year, start the year. And I think Montreal are going to finish in the bottom 5 next year as well. They will be in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. And I believe they will try and move Carey Price on or before the trade deadline next year. They'll ask him to waive his no move. They may have to eat some of the remaining deal, but you get this year out of the way. You get most of another season out of the way on that contract. And I think if he can play next year, if the knee is okay, that his numbers will be satisfactory. I don't know if he can be a Sorokin on the Islanders. I mean, this guy's unbelievable. He's in the Vezina conversation. They don't have a sniff at the playoffs. The only reason they're in a lot of the games is when he is in the lineup as a goaltender. He is that good. And this is what Carey needs to be next year on what's going to be a very poor team. A very, very poor team. Albeit maybe finally, with the direction that Gorton and Hughes are going to push this team, they may finally get right down to rock bottom and be able to push up. I mean, Colorado Avalanche had a 48-point season in 2017. 48 points in 2016-17. That's not that long ago. They're a cup favorite this year. Now, some smart trades, obviously building around some guys. They're not building around guys that were taken first overall. Now, they're building around some high picks for sure. McKinnon and Makar among them, notably. And others ranting in. I mean, they've got some unbelievable talent there. Landeskog from years back, Calder Trophy winner as well. You got 3 Calder Trophy winners right there that I just mentioned. But these aren't guys that went first overall. They were very high picks. But, it's some smart trades too. And they stuck with Bednar. They got a good coach there. I like him. Always liked him. Liked him the time he came in. I followed him a little bit in the minors. Liked the guy. So, this is what you need to be. You can say Toronto right now, although it's less on them because they've got to win a round. And they're going to play Tampa, and they're going to have home ice advantage, and they got to win that series. I say, okay, if they lose, what does that really mean? Losing to the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. Well, I mean, eventually somebody has to beat them. Eventually Toronto has to win. So I don't know. We'll discuss that later down the road. Maybe it doesn't mean you necessarily have to blow it up. Are they losing in double overtime in Game 7? Well, it's a different story. They're losing in 5 or 6 games. And how are Matthews and Marner and Johnny T, how are they going to play? And Nylander and Riley? And more importantly, the goaltending. How are they going to play? So that's the way they got to handle that. What else I got for you here? Not much. Got this day in hockey, as I said, top of the show, brought to you by, of course, my dear friend Rod Brown, Hosie and Brown, Mark Cullen from Ad Seal Services. We thank them for their steady and ongoing sponsorship here in my little foray in the hockey world. And this day in hockey, where we always celebrate after with a shot of the finest, we'll go with the Dunrobin Distillery today. We'll be offering up a couple of birthday wishes to 2 friends. But this day in hockey brought to you by Redebins. Redebins.ca. Redebins.ca. Garbage containers, folks. Garbage containers. They are the one-stop shop for garbage containers. These are the containers that you typically see on construction sites but they're also used extensively for home renovations or building of homes, things of that nature. You'll see lots of times bins out front of these types of construction jobs, and Redebins are in the mix. They are noted for their bright red color. There's no doubt about that. You can go on the website and see it. They are noted for what they quote you as a price is what you get. They are noted for they will pick up, they will dispose of, they will drop off everything that you put in there. They take care of everything from A to Z. Redebins.ca is where you find them online. They have a phone number. It is 613, the Ottawa location where most of my viewers of Liam's Hockey do live. You can find them on that website regardless of where you live in North America. But they, for our Ottawa viewers here, 613-867-BINS, 613-867-2467. Pretty easy number to remember, that last four number. Just remember 6724s. 613-867-2467. Redebins.ca. And they do a fantastic job, and they are in the mix right now. So check them out online. They bring to you this day in hockey. A couple things here to finish up for you. And yes, we've got Tony Esposito's first playoff shutout. We've got Bertie Perron's first playoff shutout. You've got Bobby Orr's first playoff goal, April 2069, came against the Habs. They lost that series, but Bobby scored his first playoff goal. He ended up with 26 of those, 92 points in 74 playoff games. We all know about Robert Gordon Orr. You've got a number of other statistical accomplishments throughout the league of individuals and teams. The Montreal Canadiens won their third consecutive Stanley Cup in 1958 on this date, and they became only the second team in NHL history to accomplish that. You've got a number of other team accomplishments. The Pittsburgh Penguins setting a win record in the playoffs on this date in 1993, which eventually they lost to the New York Islanders a little later on. Well, first they lost the next game, so this streak ended. But they set the record at this day, on this date, at this time in 93. However, the one I want to mention is the Good Friday Massacre on Friday, April 20th, 1984. I think it's the one, folks, that we have to do a quick shout-out to. That's the Montreal Canadiens and Quebec Nordiques, a rivalry that I feel, in its time period, was the most significant in hockey history and in the discussion for sports history. The only reason maybe it gets knocked down a peg or two is it did have a finality when Quebec left the NHL in 1995 after 16 years. Prior to that, Montreal Canadiens and Quebec Nordiques played in the playoffs on 5 occasions. They all had their different degrees of violence and tension, with Montreal winning 3 series and Quebec 2. Nothing will come close to Good Friday 1984, which was Game 6. Quebec was nursing a 1-0 lead as the second period drew to a close, and all hell broke loose. Everybody knows the story. Most of you have seen the video. 3 noteworthy things. Mario Tremblay broke Peter Stastny's nose. That was pretty significant in that regard. The Hunter brothers, who some people think fought, they did not. At one point, Dale was on the ground. His brother Mark of the Habs was on top of him. He did not swing on him. I believe they have said in interviews at different times it was really close to happening, but it did not happen. And the third thing, and the saddest of all, was Louis Slager succoring Jean Hamel. And Hamel did come to camp the following year for Montreal and suffered another eye injury, and he decided to retire at that point. But I don't think he was ever fully recovered anyway from the Slager sucker shot. And that game featured 252 penalty minutes, I think 11, 12, or 13 ejections. It was back-to-back bench-clearing brawls. I believe only twice that has happened in NHL history. The other time being a playoff game as well between the Leafs and the Rangers in 1971. That was the night that Vic Hadfield threw Jacques Plante's mask into the crowd That's a whole other story for another time. But April 20th, 1984, I think, is the Habs were losing 1-0. They finally do. Bruce Hood does get everybody kicked out. By the way, Bruce Hood retired during that summer. And there is a lot of speculation that the NHL kind of pushed him out the door. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if he's ever stated publicly or not if he feels that way, but that's the speculation that's out there. He was the referee. The mistake that he made was at the conclusion of the first brawl and the period unofficially being called over, Bruce never informed all of the combatants who should have been expelled, kicked out of the game, that they were, in fact, kicked out of the game. So they all came out and were skating around in the warm-up to start the third period. And then Mike McPhee and Mark Hunter went after Louis Slager, and it was on. It was on like Donkey Kong, and it was just unbelievable, really, to watch it all again. I watched it on TV. I was at so many games at the Forums, including that playoff year. I didn't go to that one. I didn't go to that one. It was Easter weekend. We had a big thing going at home, family and everything else. I didn't go down because normally in those days when I was going down, I wasn't coming home, sometimes for a day or two. And I had started doing some radio in Montreal and a little bit of TV. And I just hadn't arranged to make any arrangements for tickets. Didn't go down. Missed it. Watched it on TV. Would have been something to see live. But as it was, the Nordiques went up very quickly, 2-0 to start the third. This was Game 6. They win. They forced Game 7. And then the Habs scored 5 goals in 8 minutes and 2 seconds. Steve Schutt being the two that stand out the most. Oh, John Chabot as well. He scored on an assist from Guy Lafleur. And the Habs are off and running. Ended up winning the game 5-3. Wilf Paymal got a late one, and they won the series. Went on. Lost to the Islanders in the next round after winning the first 2 games of that series. This was the Steve Penny miracle run. So, April 20th, 1984, courtesy of Redebins.ca. So, thank you guys for that. And, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I guess to throw a mention out to Pete Babando as well for the back-to-back OT winners with the Rangers in 1950. I did mean to mention that earlier because the Rangers got screwed, man. They got screwed a bunch of years in the playoffs, but that year in the finals and another one, they played Game 1 of the 1950 Stanley Cup Final in Detroit. They played Game 2 and 3 in Toronto because the circus came into Madison Square Gardens every spring, early spring, and took the building over. So if the Rangers still were in the playoffs, they would have to find other locations to play their home games. How ridiculous is that? So as a result, they played Games 2 and 3 in Toronto as they were trying to figure out a schedule. That was their home games. Then they played the rest of the series in Detroit. I mean, come on. You telling me if they don't have Game 6 in New York, they don't get that win? They blew 3 leads in that game as it was. Detroit won Game 6 and Game 7 in double overtime on a goal by Pete Babando. But on April 20th, this day, 1950, Don Raleigh, known as Bones, he weighed in at 155 pounds, nicknamed Bones, voted one of the top 30 New York Rangers of all time, I believe. He scored back-to-back overtime winners in Games 4 and 5 for the Rangers. In Detroit, no less. And only the next guy to do that was John LeClair with the Habs in 93. So a bit of a gap. This is a pretty significant accomplishment. He also was the first New York Ranger to ever have a 4-goal game in the regular season against Chicago a few years earlier. Just thought of that. Anyway, shout out to Bones. All right, that's going to do it. Birthday wishes here to my roommate, Peter Oliver. Happy birthday, Ollie. And to the one and only Chuck Spider Jones. My late grandfather would have been celebrating a birthday today. God, how old would he have been? He was born, I believe, in 1886. So that's he'd be 136 years old today. And he used to walk me home from grade 1 in Stoneham, Quebec. Imagine. Means I'm getting older too, but still. For those of you who had a relative that was born in the 1800s, think about how that cool of your hand would have held their hand of a man or a woman born in the 1800s. Pretty cool. I think about that every now and then. So to my late grandfather, Sonny Payne, to my roommate Ollie, and to the lovable one, the boss of the hot sauce, the cat who brought the nitty-gritty to the city, one of the nearest and dearest friends of my life, Chuck Spider Jones, also celebrating a birthday today. Everybody be well. Thanks for watching Liam's Hockey. Thanks to the sponsors. And we'll catch you next show. G'day. Stay strong.